Hello, my name is Gregory Campbell, and this evening I'm going to be presenting to you a better baked budget. The reason for this program is that there's a need for healthy eating at lower costs to families, and that can lead to a better quality of living overall. Eating well on a budget is possible, but it's rarely something that's achieved. The health and wellness of families can improve by teaching parents and children simple, delicious, budget-friendly recipes. The goal of this presentation is to identify how to make better choices about food and spending to meet resource goals. This evening I will be trying to cover these different areas about healthy food that contribute to a better, a balanced diet for you and yours and anybody else that may benefit from this program. It would be helpful if we discuss what healthy foods are instead of picking and choosing what we want to eat because we like those things. Those things can actually be detrimental to our budget over time. I also want to focus on developing a household budget that makes it possible for nutritious foods to be a part of the overall health plan for the family and for the spending of the family. Healthy foods are often pretty expensive, so that's one of the objectives we're trying to meet. Another objective is that we need to learn how to select foods that support healthier eating choices and savings. Now, here are some questions for a better baked budget. If you want a better baked budget, you have to ask the who, what, when, where, why, and how, just like a newspaper. Who can cook? I know I can. My wife would probably say that she could too if she was here. But who can cook? What goes into cooking nutritious food? When does cooking take place in your household? Where does cooking begin? Why do we need to ask so many questions about cooking? Well, we're going to be eating, aren't we? So, how can asking questions about cooking help my family or your family? How can those things help me are the important questions. But here's a more important question. Probably the best question might be, what foods actually are needing to be cooked? What are the foods that we need to gather in? This might help us to make a better baked budget. Let's start by asking the questions that only food can answer. We need to identify foods by category. And I'd like to use the myplate.gov app. If you have the app, that would help. I'm going to use the screen here to show you the myplate.gov website. The myplate.gov website gives guidelines to help families to identify what actually goes into cooking. And we will start by looking at what kinds of foods are actually out there for us to choose. When you go to myplate.gov, you'll get this screen. When you get to this screen, there's something down here that looks like a plate on a tray with a little fork, whatever. It will give you the 4 main food groups. For the sake of time in this discussion, in this presentation, we will leave out dairy. But I want you to make note of this lovely plate that we have here. You have fruits and vegetables on one side, and they have their own sizes. You have grains and proteins on the other side, and they have their corresponding sizes. And it's interesting that vegetables and grains are about the same size, and fruits and proteins are about the same size, but are on the opposite ends of the spectrum. This will help us to better understand what we need to eat and what we don't need to eat. Like I said, for the time being, we're gonna stay away from the dairy portion. But I want you to look back at our presentation. Give me one moment. Here on the presentation, you'll see a plethora of different colors. We must be eating the rainbow. If we're not eating the rainbow, we've got problems. We've got horrific problems if we're not concentrating on eating all these wonderful colors. Each color is a variety that corresponds with a specific nutrient or phytonutrient. Little bitty details that make different foods very, very different, but vital in and of themselves. Red fruits, what would you think that red fruits correspond to? Well, red fruits and vegetables, red vegetables and red fruits, they all have lycopene. These things are necessary. Lycopene is necessary for heart health. So it's interesting that the red fruits and the red vegetables are red, and the blood pumps blood, which is also red. That's a way of remembering what these red fruits and vegetables are good for. How about oranges? Oranges and orange or yellow vegetables. What do you think that they have in them that these other plant-based foods may not have? Beta carotene. Yes, beta carotene is something that we think of specifically with carrots. That's where a carrot gets its name, right? Carotene, carrots. But also in pumpkins and papaya and even oranges have carotenes. Carotenes are those things that are necessary for our immune system to be robust. How about greens? There's a lot of greenery here. I love kiwi, and I love what's that? The bell peppers and avocado. I love green stuff. Believe it or not, I love spinach. I could eat spinach like chips. But what is the greeny stuff good for? What are the greenies good for? What do they have that all these other things don't have? I wonder if anybody's out there thinking chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is that important nutrient that helps plants to grow. And guess what? That translates over into our bodies. The green stuff, the chlorophyll, and some of the other things that are found in like spinach and broccoli are high in calcium. Potassium is found in avocados. These things are necessary for our cells to grow. Just like the chlorophyll helps plants to grow and have the nutrients they need to grow, it does the same thing for our bodies. It's very interesting. And so there are many other different colors and different variations of the colors, but they are necessary and very important. So we have to eat the whole thing. I want to bring back to your attention the My Plate. What do you see about the sizes here? The fruits and the vegetables, what do you see about the sizes? The fruit is about a quarter of the whole circle. The vegetable is a little bit bigger than a quarter. Actually, the fruit is a little bit less than a quarter because this line is above the halfway line. We need more vegetables. We need more grains than we need fruit and protein. We need those, but we need a little bit less of some of these others. I want you to keep your mind set on coming back to myplate.gov. There's a lot here that we can learn from and use in the future. Let's talk about grains and proteins. When I think about grains and I think about proteins, I don't generally put them together unless you're talking about steak and potatoes. Potatoes is not necessarily a grain, but most grains can have starch. And so that's what comes to mind. But there's some other things that we can get our grain nutrients from and our our protein, our building blocks from. With grain, there are things like oats, barley, flax, corn, chia seeds. Don't sleep on chia seeds. They're very, very good for energy. And also hemp hearts is a there's a lot of fiber in that, and there's a lot of energy that can be garnered from hemp hearts. But also there's this superfood called quinoa. Quinoa is one of those super grains, just like spinach is a superfood and broccoli is a superfood. Well, one of our super grains is the quinoa. Now I want us to focus a minute for proteins. Proteins, as you can see here, eggs, pork, that's bacon. I hope it's pork bacon, that's what I like. But a hard, healthier choice might be turkey bacon, but turkey, any kind of poultry, would be a hard, healthier choice than something like pork. But pork is still a viable protein. Pork, eggs, chicken, fish, beef, and guess what? There's one that crosses over from the grain category, and it can be looked at as a perfect protein as well. That's quinoa. Quinoa can double as a grain. You can treat it like rice or oats, and it's also packed with protein. Do not sleep on quinoa. No, I'm not trying to sell it to anyone, but it is a very powerful food. Now, I want us to look for just a second, for just a moment, at the My Plate again. There's something about My Plate that I want you to see. When you come to the website, you will find, let's see, I want to know how much fruit I should eat, or how much grain I should eat, or protein. Quinoa. Let's look at how much, if I was going to eat quinoa as a protein, let's see how much protein I would need. If you go on the website and you click on the My Plate, I'll go back just a moment so that you can see that it's interactive. If you hover above any one of these parts of the plate and then click on that group, even dairy, if you click on that group, it will bring up information about that group. Here in protein foods, you can actually go back to that front plate, or that you can go back to different portions of My Plate, sorry. For now, let's look at the protein group. If I needed to know more information about how much I needed to eat, I hate to be transparent, but I'm going to be transparent about my weight. I'm 217 pounds. Ugh. It's true. I'm working on it. That's why I'm doing budgeting and working on bills and recipes so that I could get the bulge beaten. So I'm 217 pounds. How much do I need of protein a day? Well, when I click on how much do you need, this little measuring cup, you can also learn more tidbits about proteins. In every category, you can learn more tidbits about them. But if I click on how much do I need, how much do you need, it comes down here and it tells you how much food from the protein you might need every day. It won't tell you right out because it's different for different people, different ages, different genders, different makeups are going to determine how much protein we need. But we should do this for every category. Since we're in protein, there's a link here that says My Plate Plan. Click My Plate Plan. Calculate your My Plate Plan. I'm going to get started to see how much protein I need every day. My age is 44 years old. Yes, I'm over the hill. My gender is male. No, I'm not a mammalian, just a male. How tall am I? A stumpy 5'3" Avert your eyes. I am 217 pounds. How much physical activity do I have every day? Less than 30 minutes a day of moderate activity, 30 to 60 minutes. Unfortunately, I do this a lot. I sit a lot and work. Physical activity is less than 30 minutes a day of moderate activity. Let's view the food plan. To achieve a healthy weight, I need a 2,000 calorie plan. I'm gonna come down here, already know your plan, select your plan. My plate plan. And looky here, it has my calories. I think I skipped the part that talks about the protein. How did I go from calories or from protein to calories? I'm so sorry about that. I got a little overzealous about my plate. I really love this website. Let's try that again. Let's go into the protein. And instead of clicking on where I like to go, how much do you need? I really need to back away from how much do I need. I need to look at instead more about the protein food groups to find the daily protein foods table. This is where you find out how much is recommended for each individual group. Toddlers, 12 to 23 months, 2 ounces or equivalent. Children, 2 to 4 ounces or equivalent for 2 to 3 years old, or 3 to 5.5 ounces equivalent for 4 to 8 years old. I'm all the way down here in the 44-year-old men category. So how much do I need of protein every day? 6 to 7 equivalent ounces of protein. Try that in quinoa, and that would be interesting to see if I could eat that much quinoa. This is a very helpful tool. I hope that you will use it, not just for this workshop and this program, but on a regular basis to try to help your budget and your nutrient needs. Let's go back to our presentation. Let's take some time to talk about food. Let's take 10 minutes to pull up the My Plate food groups on our phones. Since I don't have an actual audience, I would say about 10 minutes would be all that it takes to pull up the My Plate food groups app, or pull up the website on our phones or Macs or our PCs and just look at the different groups. I would ask that the following foods be looked at: apples, green beans, rice, beef, yogurt, ranch dressing, oranges, broccoli, quinoa, chicken, raw milk, and jam. There's a couple of these that I've mentioned that are actually processed. They are foods that are processed. Are apples processed? No, they're picked from a tree, or they're picked off the ground once they fall from a tree. What about green beans? No, they grow on a vine and you pluck them off. Rice? No. Beef? No. Yogurt? Yes. Yogurt goes through a process, sometimes a pasteurizing process. And so we have to be careful about the things that are processed. Most of the foods that have been discussed this evening have been about foods that are whole foods, not those things that are processed. Another good reason to leave off dairy for this discussion. Not that dairy is bad in and of itself, but we do want to steer clear of processed foods. Oranges, are they processed? Nope. Broccoli, quinoa, chicken? No. Raw milk? No. Raw milk is straight from the cow and into the cup. But ranch dressing and jam are those things that we might want to put some jam with our peanut butter or with our English muffins. And ranch dressing we might want with our wings on game day, or we might want ranch dressing. That's fine. These are sometimes sometime foods that we don't overeat. We need to use those in moderation. Now let's talk about budgeting. Budgeting is made easier when we eat right. Believe it or not, when we eat right, budgeting is made easier. And I'm going to come back to that. The reason is this: money is not endless. This came from parents.com. Money is not an endless thing. It didn't even have to come from the website. We know we don't have an endless supply of money. So we have to be frugal about our choices. We don't have to be bread and water about everything, but we can't have pizza every day either, or takeout items every other day. Those things would not work for our budget. They're budget killers, actually. And just like they're budget killers, pizza every day could be a health killer. Takeout, anytime you take out food, most of the time people are not paying attention to what goes into the takeout. I don't read the instructions on a Big Mac from McDonald's. I just generally don't do that. I just eat it. And when we eat takeout and when we eat pizza, we're not mindful of what we're putting into our body. So our health and its limits are not being mindful of our pockets having limits and boundaries as well. Takeout, pizza, those things are expensive. They're very expensive. And so is healthcare costs. If we keep the attitude or the mindset that it's okay to eat pizza and take out every other day, then that's going to add up in healthcare costs down the road. So let's talk a little bit about budgeting. We talked food enough, and food is fun. Let's talk budgeting food. Let's take about 5 minutes. If I had an audience here that was actually sitting here with me, I would say we take about 5 minutes to input some numbers into the field that I would hand out. And since there's no audience, I can show you the handout that I would use. The handout that I would use would come from the MoneyFit website. It's a PDF worksheet that you can print out yourself, or you can make the fields fillable, which I have done here. And say, for instance, this part of it says income. Income, you'd put your paycheck in over here. I would say somebody makes $1,500. Oh, that's $15,000. Somebody makes $1,500 a month, and if they have a partner, here's a partner or a spouse, that person's money would be entered in too. Once again, I did $1,500, and just plug in numbers. Do you have savings? Yes, I have $10 for savings. Do you have rent? Yes, I rent a place for $1,250. And I pay utilities for like $700 because I run up the electric bill. When it's cold, I turn on the heater, and when it's hot, I turn on the AC. So I run up the AC, and the electric bill is sky high. And then my groceries, I spend about $30. Eating out and takeout, I spend about $500 because I love it. And other food expenses, I might go to a game or go to a doctor's office, and because I'm so sickly because I don't eat what I'm supposed to eat. And so I use the vending machines, and I might buy a Slim Jim or two, or a bag of chips, or a honey bun or something like that. And I might do that because I go to the doctor so much. In this part, be crazy and just see what happens when you put crazy numbers. If I What if I spent $400 on vending machines? That's $900 on takeout compared to the $30 that I must have bought. What did I buy for $30 at the grocery store? I can't think of anything that I wouldn't come out there with much if I spent $30 at the grocery store and on household supplies. Most of that's going to be Dawn and trash bags, and then what do I have left here for some of the healthier food choices that we've gone over earlier? But $500 and $400, $900 being spent on eating out. What if I adjusted that 900? Let's just make it easier numbers. And more realistic. I might spend $100 on groceries. What if I took that $900 and shifted it elsewhere? Put that 900 right here. $1,000 in groceries and supplies. I want to go back and put the $30 there, the $500 here, and the $400 there. On top of childcare, I spend $600 in childcare. I don't know where it's all coming from. And I spend about $30 a month on credit cards. I have a deficit down here. How about I don't want to really mess with the credit card debt because I have to pay that off. Childcare, maybe I'm going to lessen childcare halfway because I want to save money so that I can eat better, because there's also a space for health care. Do I pay a health insurance premium? If I'm eating takeout this much and eating out of vending machines this much, I probably have a health insurance premium. I'm going to save $200 a month. I have a $220 deficit down here. Let's change where I'm putting my money for food. I'm going to put that $1,000, that $500 is coming away from takeout, and the $400 is coming away from the vending machines. And look what we have now. We still have a lot of money in our, we've got to rearrange some things. So I'm not going to spend that much on utilities either. I'm going to make sure that my utilities are a sensible $200. I can't change my rent unless I move into a place that's $750. And I don't know what kind of place that's going to be. But then I have a $10 deficit. A lot can be changed with our food habits. How about we don't spend $1,000 on food? Because that's factoring in all that we were spending. What if we spent $200 on food? What would that look like? $510 left. I want us to start thinking more about budgeting and how that affects our food, how the food affects our health. If we're careful, we might come up with a plan that works. If we use the budgeting tool, the Money Fit budgeting tool, maybe we can find numbers that can get us into a better baked budget, not just for our pockets, but for our health, for our families, eating the right things and saving money. I know that was a little convoluted and a whole bunch of pressing numbers and punching numbers around, but we should really give this a think. Give it a try. Budgeting takes work. It does not happen overnight. MoneyFit, the website at moneyfit.com, they even say budgeting takes work. I hate numbers. They laugh at me, but I also hate bad health. I hate having a thin pocket, and I hate it for families like such as yours and mine. maybe we should try to better bake our budgeting habits. At this time, I would take questions for 1 to 5 minutes as time would allow. And I would ask, do you see any areas in your own budget that can be changed, that can be tweaked just a little bit to bring about a better desire, a desired outcome that is better for your health, better for your family, and better for your pockets? What changes will you make to have better boundaries in your spending on nutritious food? Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day.